Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. Really happy to have a Bay Area legend, Coach Craig Ashmore. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Coach. Really appreciate meeting you and having me on today. Is just a great experience for me. Thank you.
And I just want to give some context. I want to make sure I got all of this right. But 600 wins, 600 plus wins, 4 section titles, 2-time NorCal champion, 4-time runner up. Did I get all the accolades there?
Um, I think we were. I don't know. It sounds right. I don't really look at those reflectively, but yeah, we've had some great teams, and better than that, we've had great kids.
Definitely. Well, jumping right into it, why don't we give a little bit of background story about you growing up here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a couple junior highs during Prop 13. We lost some athletics when I was an eighth grader, so
Mhm.
I went from Piedmont Middle School to Shepherd Middle School, where my dad was the PE teacher and coach, and they still had sports, so there was a huge funding issue surrounding schools at that time. So I transferred there and played, and then I graduated and went to Independence High School and played all 4 years there, and had some decent players. We had Dan Weiss that played at Santa Clara and then went and played in Japan, and Reggie Bynum was drafted by the Buffalo Bills as a football but a great basketball athlete, and had some pretty good teams there.
Nice. And when did you start? You've been coaching for at Newark for over 30 years now, or 30 years now. But when did you start your coaching career?
In college, I got done with my fifth year of playing, and I got a second degree. So I was still in college, but I coached 2 years at Logan girls basketball.
Mhm.
So that was 32, and then it was kind of unique. Even when I was in high school and college, I tended to help my dad all the time and his teams, his junior high teams. It was like a big deal. They would on Saturdays play at the local high school, and they were county champs, and I just was really it was fun to be part of that. When I was a little kid, I would be doing the shot chart and just around it, and being around a coach's son. You just, anything from practice to everything was like so exciting to me.
Right. So you've won 15 league championships in a very difficult league. A lot of the top tier teams in your league will go on to, the section as well as the NorCal and then state ranks. You've had a really great run. Talk about your growth mindset because I'm always intrigued by somebody who has long-term success. I think anybody can have short-term success or a flash in the pan, but doing it over a sustained period of time is very important to me and my personal development because I always want to be great at whatever I do for a long period of time, and I want to get that same knowledge from the people that have done it for such a long time like yourself.
Well, it feels like it's just a flash, but it's been, 30 years. And then, as all coaches will say, we just had good players, but then they really bought into the family and the culture of what we're about. And I felt like they always wanted to outwork people,
Hmm.
out people, and then they want to be selfless. And when you have those ingredients, you're able to compete at any level. If you're really good, talented, you can compete with anyone. And if you're just average high school team, you can compete with most people if you have those three elements.
Right. Talk to me about your competitive nature because, I've seen you coach. This is the first time we've actually interacted, or actually this week when we talked before. But just, I love the passion and energy that you have on the sidelines. And, you can just tell that you're competitive. You're trying to win in every single thing that you're doing. Tell me where that competitive nature really came from.
I don't know. I think it was almost unhealthy when I was a little kid. I even remember being like 10 or 11 years old and pretty good in baseball, but strike out and I'd be so mad I'd cry. I was just like heavily emotional. So
Yeah.
I think that that's good. I think my team takes on a lot of that every year. Maybe not every year. The last 3 years, maybe four, we have an extra camera and we just film me, and I try to
Mm,
tone down my behavior. I don't really like reflectively how that looks sometimes.
sure.
when you take little snippets of it, it looks terrible, how you address refs and so on. So I always felt like, I grade our team on our pluses and minuses and stuff. In the last 3 years, I'm probably like a C minus, trying to get to that B level. So I really grade myself not on just tactical, but how I handle our players, how I handle the refs, how I handle timeouts, my body language. Those
Mm.
things are important to me. And I'm not extremely proud of them, but I think what happens is the kids know you're engaged, you're passionate, you care, and you're going to coach every possession, down 10, up 10, whatever. Everything matters to us, and I think that rubs off on them.
It's a interesting conundrum, because as a coach, when you were so passionate. Well, before I go down that road, my son is very similar to me. So like he's got a couple little basketball hoops outside and in his room, and so if he misses one shot, and he's only 3 years old, but if he misses one shot, he like loses it. It's like, dude, you don't understand that this is a failure game. Like you're not going to even make half of your shots, even if you're the best player. If you're outside of the post, so it's just interesting because I see so much of that in me. And then early on as a coach, I was, very similar. I'm so passionate. I want to win. I want to, every possession seems like it's life and death. But I started to watch myself on film as well. So it's interesting that you say that because I didn't really like what I saw. And then conversations with officials and things like that. I used to be a high school ref before I actually started coaching, and I've changed my demeanor probably over the last 16 years. Much better. Players that come and see me, they're like, "Coach, you're so relaxed now." It's
Oh
like,
yeah, it's nice.
and that to me is growth. That's growth on your part. There's growth on my part to try to continually be better. And if we can still show that passion for the game, but we can also be respectful of it too. And two things that I learned from Sue Phillips, who is an all-time great coach in her own right. She says competition oftentimes brings the worst out of people, and I firmly believe that because when you're in between those lines, you're just a different person. I'm super mild mannered off the court, but when people see me coach for the first time, it's like, whoa, where was that?
Mhm.
And then I forgot the other thing that she says, but I think it's just really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it does bring out the worst in me, and but then sometimes I go the other way, and I'm not who I am, and my
Mhm.
players play lethargic. They play to the level of my emotions, so I've trained them that way, which is not a good thing. So if I'm gonna make that change, I got to do it all the time, and I'm working. I would say at a level 1 to 10, I'm at a 1 or a 2.
Yeah.
But I used to be a 1. Now maybe I'm a 2, and just being aware of watching it's so funny. I'd watch a scrimmage and my wife would make a short comment about maybe my conduct, and I was like, oh no, I thought I was pretty good. I wasn't like on this kid or whatever. And there's only like 2 people in the gym, so I mean you can hear it. Then I
Yeah.
watch the tape and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, you're not. I think one of the worst things I do, and I continue to do this, I'll be mad at a kid on a play and I'll basically tell him what he did wrong. Then I will sub him out. So now he has to walk over. I could have just told him on the bench, but I yelled it across what he should have done, took him
Right.
out. Then he has to talk to me, and we have a system. You have to go all the way down and shake everyone's hand. So he has to walk by me again and hear it again. Then my dad chews on him. Then he goes down the bench. Everyone high fives him. Then he sits down, and I probably go down there and tell him again. So I'm like, maybe 3 times, and maybe not embarrass the kid all the way across. If you're going to take him out, let's not yell at him. And
Right.
I really hate that. I don't do it as much, but I still do that. It's bad.
Yeah. The staff dynamics too. I know, and we'll get to you and your dad's relationship a little bit later, but I think that's so important too because on the staff, I designate that I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to be the one that holds them accountable. And then, my assistant coaches, usually we have three assistants. One will be the nurturer, one will be, the educator, and then one will kind of back coach with me. And so we'll have those three different areas in which now they kind of get all of those things, that they need from them. So they'll get the discipline from me, and then they'll get the other stuff that they need from the assistant coaches. And it sounds like you have something similar in place.
Yeah, and I think that everyone having that role is important too, right? And I thought last year we were down. We were doing it with three, but we normally have four, sometimes five, and I felt that I was trying to be the positive dude and then maybe even the bad guy sometimes. So it was like kind of hard. I think my dad, because he's done it so long, I let him. Some nights he's just a jerk, and then some nights he's really positive. So I just let him
Right.
do whatever he wants. The other guys definitely have a role.
Definitely. And early on in my career, I was it's a term in Hollywood, like playing at somebody. So if it's your favorite actor like Will Smith, you would try to act like him in some of the auditions and things like that. And I found myself playing at what I thought some successful coaches were doing, or even coaches that I had, and some of my high school coaches very well, and the type of demeanor that they had. But it's just interesting how you do that and you develop. But at the end of the day, you really got to be yourself, and that's what I respect about you the most, is you've been authentic to who you are. You won't be apologetic to that. Your only objective is to help kids and give back, and so you've done that for over 30 years now, and that's what I appreciate the most, because at the end of the day, we're just high school coaches. So the wins and the losses really, in the grand scheme of things, are great. And I'm glad that you don't even know your, record. I don't even know mine. But the lives that are impacted, over that tenure is really our report card, and what they come back and say is what reflects what actually happened on the court.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at that, that's so important, especially in like what we're in right now, COVID. Like I got to coach kids, and I don't think we're getting that much better in basketball, but I'm going to have a relationship with my seniors. I just got off a Zoom call with one of them, and I've been so bored. I watched every one of our games last year, and now I've watched every game through the lens of an individual player, and I'm on my third player where we just watch the game, and we're just watching you. We're not watching the other guys. What are you doing away from the ball, and so on. And more of that is just so I can coach them more, because I don't get to see them. And then
Right.
two, uh, I just think our depth of relationship needs to be better with these seniors. They're going to miss out. I'm going to miss out on some great kids, because over the 30-year span, I've been in 4 or 5 guys' weddings. I mean, you're just part of their life. And those are the paychecks. Those are the wins that are huge, the impact that you make.
For sure. Yeah, there's a score of the game, and there's a score of the game of life. And
Right.
I'd rather be winning on the latter.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
you've always run your program like a business, everything buttoned up, everything to a T. And that's really respectable. So can you tell all the listeners how you run your program, from a high level overview of, treating it like a business?
I just think organization, time management, your demands are important of what, and then setting the bar high, and then the wins will kind of take care of itself. But play the best, expect the best, but then make sure your work ethic and make sure all the things that line up to that match what your expectations are. A lot of kids, oh, I want to win the state, but they don't want to work. They don't want to do all those things. So I think we do a lot of things in the summer. I think we play at least 40 games, and we work out for 40 straight days, 2 hours in the morning, whether we have a game that night or not. And an hour of it is some kind of weight training, physical, core related, explosiveness, movement. And then one is maybe a half hour of skill development and some team stuff. We don't do a lot of team in the summer. It's pretty just let guys play. And I want to evaluate talent. Can you play and get each other shots? And when plays can get people shots, I want to see if you can get each other shots and play, because at the end, when you're playing in NorCal and State, You
No
might get
place.
4 points off something. It's all about me getting you a shot or you making a layup, we getting a steal, and you got to just fight through those things. So I think the biggest thing for our kids, the expectation has to be high. You know, you lose everyone, and all of a sudden everyone's, oh, you're not going to be very good. That next year I'm going to make our schedule just as hard and as tough as we can. And
Right.
if we're, which we've been 0-7 before to start a season. And I felt we played great and we got way better. So you have to have enough confidence in the kids and in yourself to feel that you can fail sometimes and it's going to be good in the long run.
Definitely. Such a successful program like yours. What are some challenges that you face on a year in and year out basis with the high expectations that are there at the institution at Newark? It's everybody might look at your situation and be like, "Oh, coach has such a really great situation," and whatever the case may be. And sometimes people may say that about teams, my team, or teams in our league, but they don't really understand that it's just as hard wherever you're at to sustain any type of excellence.
Yeah. And then I try not to get caught up in that because I think for a while there's little things that people, oh, you won, our kids won 11 championships in a row, right? And all of a sudden, my expectation is the state every year or a national championship or whatever it is. So I got to coach you today. It doesn't matter what we did yesterday. It doesn't matter what your brother did. You better reinvent it. But the expectations are always there. And then as a coach, we better adapt to our talent and change things so we can be more successful. But the being on time, working hard, quote of the day, being a good team, like come on in. This is a huge thing for us. Uh, we do our laundry, so when you come in, your practice gear is laid out,
Wow.
your shoes are laid out.
And do you do that for them, or is somebody on staff?
That's a great thing because when it's dirty and it's nasty, my dad takes it and puts it in the wash machine. The
Wow.
next morning, I have maybe a TA, but me and my dad are going to lay it out for you. You're going to come in the gym and it's going to be set up, and I'm going to be sweeping whether I'm in my suit or not. And we're about giving. So I'm like, you don't come in because I think a lot of kids do. They'll walk in. First thing they do is say hi to their buddy and then go shoot at a basket. I want you to come read our quote. I want you to come say hi to me and shake my hand. I want you to, if I'm sweeping, ask me to take it and I'll say no, but you better ask me. And I want you to do something for the team before you walk in and just start, oh, I got to go to the bathroom and get my shoes on. I'm going to lay the ball up. I'm going to, steal the shorts because we do the laundry and everyone wants small shorts now. So
Mhm.
the dude that's 230 is wearing like a medium. I'm like, come on, dude. Well, I got there first. So I just say, man, you got the guy with the most experience in the gym and he's touching, cleaning your dirty laundry. You need to start being more selfless and work for each other. We leave something, you pick it up. Guys having trouble in the classroom, we're going to take care of that kid. So no one's immune to it. Hard work. If I'm there and I tell them like on Saturdays, we start practice at 8, I'm going to get there at 6:30. We
Right.
all summer, I do every training session. I'm there with you. So I'm going to put in more time. I'm going to watch more film than you. I'm going to do all that. And I encourage you to do it. But the model is hard work and dedication to us as a team right now, not in the past. Oh, we're not as good this year, so we're not going to work. We do everything. If we're 500 or we're 30-2, we're going to do everything like we're a national champion type team.
Coach, that's beautiful. The servant leadership
Yeah.
aspect of it, that's really what we're trying to teach, and no better way than to actually go out there and do it with them, or before them, or outwork them. I think that's something that anybody can take, whether you be a business owner, whether you be a high school basketball coach, in any walk of life, a parent. Show the kids what you were willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the entire group. the family, the business, the team. It's just amazing. I mean, um, you know, we've got a lot of resources at Valley, and I wasn't really used to that early on when I got there. And our locker room is better than most college locker rooms. And so I think you've been there for the tournament or whatnot. But you know,
Yeah, I was in the training room, so I didn't get in that nice
okay.
locker room. Steve Cotton had me in the training room. I don't know if you remember him, but
Yeah, I do. His son is my assistant coach, Stephen Cotton Jr.
well, Stephen Cotton Sr. was a senior when I was a junior, and he was a leading scorer in our league. And we boxed him, won him. I guarded him, and he had 4 points. So that was like a big deal for me. He was
Really?
at
That.
Silver Creek. I was at Independence,
Mhm.
and we ended up winning by like 8. It was terrible. So, basketball was terrible back then as far as offensively. It was like 42 to 32 or something, but he was averaging about 20. He had 2 or 4. So
Wow.
I was on the Mercury in a picture guarding him up, and I thought I was big time for guarding.
Nice. Yeah, the Stephen Cotton Jr. Well, senior comes to a lot of the games still to this day, and junior has been my right hand man even when I was coaching JV basketball over at Lee. Um, but like one year we took away all the girls pads because there's these nice cushions um, on the seats, and so we said, you know, you guys are abusing this privilege. Like you guys aren't working hard. These could be all taken away from you. So we took them away until they started playing hard. So
Yeah.
we don't do that now, but that was early on in my career, and we just kind of put the pins and put the pads and locked them away. And you know, once they deserved them, then they got them again. Same thing, like you know, we try to do the same thing as you as far as just making our situation the big time. You know, we
Mhm.
want them to look good, feel good, play good, like prime time says all the time. But you have to make your area the big time, and I really like what you've displayed to your group, and I really admire that.
Appreciate it.
Um, Talk about coaching your son. You were able to coach your son, you know, when he was in high school, and what were the dynamics with that?
To be truthfully honest, it was probably the hardest thing, and it's probably the worst thing. It was just tough. My son, growing up, was more of a we have a boat, he wakeboards, skateboard. He did other things. So when he was an eighth grader, my wife and me said, we don't care what you play, but you have to play a sport. You have to be bigger than just going to school and hanging out with your buddies. He chose basketball, and his freshman year, he played for one of my ex players, and he did pretty good, but it was tough. The demands are a little higher. And then his sophomore year was his best year. My longtime JV coach, who played for me in 92 way back, is just excellent. He does the Brad Stevens where he's demanding, but he's not a nut like me, and he's
Mm.
not a yeller, but he gets great production. And I really just think he's the best coach in our program so many times because he does all those things without getting out of character. And his character is highly competitive, but he's so classy. And my son loved it and played, and they had a really good team. And he was probably like sixth, seventh man. But when he played for me, his junior year, he busted his butt, played well. We were just pretty good. So he was probably like 10th, 11th man. And he would play into the game, and he'd be pretty productive. And then that summer, he outworked a lot of guys. But skill wasn't, I mean, he still was probably the eighth, ninth guy. So his senior year, he felt hard work always equates to success. You're not entitled to anything. You can work way harder. I always tell our guys, I'm like, I feel like I work harder than this guy at this other school, maybe. And
Yep.
they the last 2 times. So that doesn't guarantee anything. I said,
Yeah.
I'm still going to work hard. I'm not going to cut it down. I'm going to compete as hard as I can, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And it was tough for him a lot of nights because he would go in and turn the ball over and come out immediately, get kind of ripped, and he would be mad because the starter had 2 or 3 turnovers. I'm like, but he has 20 points and you'll average 4. So it was tough. But once he got done after the season, reflectively, being a part of it, you know, he went to college at Cuesta and down in the SOL area, and we had gone to the state and been on TV, and kids would always, oh, you went to Newark. Like it meant something to be part of that team. And he kind of got it then, but it was almost after, you know, it wasn't good. Mom was mad at me. We'd win by 20 and I'd come home and he didn't play enough or I was too mean to him or something, you know. And
Yeah.
my wife is tough. She's hard on people, you know, maybe probably harder than me, but she probably felt like he needed someone in his corner. So it was a very trying experience. I love the kid. He's been awesome, but you know, I think that it was a tough time for him because he finally was working really hard and he wasn't getting the rewards he thought.
Wow. Would you do it again?
You know, he went to our school. I'm not going to have him go to Moreau or O'Dowd. You know, I want him to come through here. Um, I don't know, man. I thought I was doing okay. It's just hard, man. It's hard from your dad. I played for my dad. I played for my grandfather baseball, and it was hard too. And I was on the other extreme of it. It was youth sports, so I was like maybe the best player, and it was terrible. Even a look. The one thing I did well was at home. I never talked basketball. In the car, I never talked basketball. Um, if you weren't going to hustle or you demean the team or me publicly, I was going to rip you. But, you know, I mean, I was trying to be as positive. His expectation, it's hard for kids to see what's in front of them and they just have a different lens than you at times. I mean,
Yeah.
even our kids that, oh man, I'm Division 1. And I'm like, I don't ever want to break your dreams, but you're not. You're a JC kid. You're going to work hard and maybe you're D1 at some point, but you're not right now.
Right.
So
Um,
it was just a different level.
you talked about you talked about your wife and obviously her sticking up for her son, right? Um, how have you been able to find a family balance? I mean, there's really no, in my opinion anyway, there's really not a balance. You're basically splitting up the pie, and this piece of the pie is going to get this. This is going to get this. This is going to get this.
Yeah.
Whatever is going on in your life, you're just splitting it up. And so at different times of the year, it may shift where now it's a bigger slice where you're focused on your family or whatnot. But I know how it is, especially in the season, and a guy like you, which is scouting, watching a bunch of film on the other teams, your opponents, as well as yourself, and trying to continue to find ways to get your team over the hump. What has been your family life balance over the past 30 years? And, what has been successful for you guys?
Well, first of all, it's been great because she'll be the first one that wants to go to the game, be the first one that knows all the players. Um, and I respect her opinion enough when she's like, hey, you're over the top or whatever it is. I like to analyze that. So I think that she knows me and knows even if we win or lose, she's going to critique me as a coach and not decisions, but that same thing we do on kids, your attitude, your effort, how you're doing it, how you look publicly. And then I made some adjustments. I think the biggest one was when my daughter was born. I just realized that I got to have some balance, man. I mean, I think if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't have lasted 30 years because we would lose a game. I would watch that tape all night and I wouldn't talk for a day or two. Like I wouldn't talk to the kids at school. I wouldn't talk to my wife. I couldn't let it go. And I realized that, even with our kids, when we lose after the game, I'll talk about attitude and effort. I'm not talking X's and O. I'm not pointing out individuals. I'll just blame myself. Then I'll watch the film and calmly talk. I'm going to talk about like how we feel about leaving this right here. I know we're upset, but we're not going to talk about definitive things. And I just thought my daughter being born, I had to change. So I did. I started hanging out with her more. When I scouted, I would take her, my wife and me, we're going to go scout De La Salle. So we'd find the best restaurant to eat as a family. And then we would go, and all the coaches like to sit together, notes and high five and, walk in with their school sweats on and look cool. And
Yeah.
I would wear my jeans and a t-shirt and a ball cap, and I'd sit with my family, and my daughter's playing with her little toys. Whether we're at Castlemont or Oakland, I don't care. I brought my family everywhere. And then we had this goofy rule in our league, and it was unwritten, but a lot of coaches wanted to go with it, that we couldn't film other teams in our league. You had to just scout.
Really?
So when I got there, I was like, I don't understand this. So you could scout preseason everyone else and film them, but I mean, we're going way back where you got VHS, big old stuff, but they
Yeah.
literally didn't want you to film. So when my son was a freshman, I think for a while there, I would hold to it. And what the crazy thing is, I would ask you for a tape of you played, I don't know, like Logan. I'm like, let me get your tape. So everyone was changing tape, but they just weren't filming.
Mhm.
So I said at the league meeting, I said, I want to watch my son play freshman basketball. So on the nights we don't play, you're going to see one of my coaches filming your game. So I just changed the rule that year myself,
Yeah.
because I was like, for my family, why do I need to go watch Kennedy 5 times? I can have my coaches film. I'll go watch one time, but I don't need to go 5 or 6 like I did before.
Right.
And I'm going to use these. I'm going to get all the tapes on them. And I like to see them in person because the speed's different and some things are different. But we changed that one. And I just, even now, like if we're playing a team in our league, I'll have at least 4 to 5 tapes. I just don't have 6 and 7.
Right. And you don't really
And
need 6 or 7, right? 4 or 5 games is more than enough. CMOS, one of the reasons why we connected is because you watched his episode, but he would get 7. And
yeah,
in talking with him, one of the reasons why he kind of burnt out, because he was on the fast path, winning 20 plus games a year, and
yeah,
in his coaching career at Piedmont, 12 years, he never finished lower than second place.
oh, yeah,
And every single year, and he burnt the candle at both ends. Like he was so focused on this, and it just kind of got burnt out. And that's one thing that I don't ever want to do. And I started to do stuff like you. And actually, I got this from Sue. She'll send parents to go out and film the games. And
yeah,
so, on this night, you guys are going to film Valley, or you guys are going to, and then assistant coaches as well. And then, but she rarely goes to the games to scout. But believe me, we were out all the way in Fresno, and they were in San Diego. Their 2 assistant coaches drove up to Clovis West because they were going to play Clovis and they were going to play us. They were forecasted playing Clovis later on,
right.
and they got both of us all the way, and they drove 6, 7, 8 hours to get to the games. But she wasn't the one doing it, but it was getting done regardless. And that's something that I've kind of taken to. Hey, you guys go get these games. And I started breaking up the scouts for our staff. So I'll do every single scout. They don't know that I'm going to do it, but all right, you got this one, you got this one, you got this one, or you got this group of 3 games, you got this group of 3 games, and then I want them to send me their scout. We've got it all on a Google Doc, and then I'll go ahead and put the extra notes that I see in there, and I'll know the sets, and I'll know the defenses and offenses and things like that. And so,
Well,
now we've
I love that because I think they're getting better. You're training them to be great coaches. If you did it all and all they did is observe, if they don't have it, I mean, and like my best friend was at Cal. Where else is that? I don't know. He's with the Sixers now, but basically in the Pac-10, he would have 2 schools, and those were your scouts, and you did it all. I mean, the coach knew, but you had to walk the guys through it. You had to do it, and you do need to have it. And we make our freshman JV, like our staff, right towards the middle when we start to look at seeding. Every D2 team that we think we might play, we got like 2 or 3. So they're going up Santa Rosa, they're going everywhere to get it, and then you don't know, am I going to open? So before it was kind of easy. Here's the 8 teams we know we're going to have in this playoff. And then there's 4 more in NorCal that we want to get kind of in the future. Shoot, you got to plan that stuff out, man. We'd
right.
sit down and get it. And I didn't go with any of those because I'm running practice. They're just driving and going and doing it. And they loved it. it was good for them, but they started knowing. I remember we played Sarah one time and lost in the NorCal semifinals in triple overtime, and we were mad at one of our assistants. He went to watch them play Nitty or whatever, and it was late in the year, and they always host them at Santa Clara, but it was like on a maybe at San Mateo JC or whatever. He
Mhm.
didn't get in until like the second quarter, and so we were like laughing, teasing them. We're like, they didn't play zone all year, and they played it against Midi, and they played it against us, and we didn't do so well. It took us a while. We're like, if we had that one tape,
Sarah played zone.
or maybe 3 minutes against us, and
Really?
it was Chuck Rapp too.
Yeah.
Wasn't it was Croce before, then it was Chuck, and
I've
Chaz
never.
Thomas, this the dude White. It was more of a 1-3-1 kind of. Then they matched it up. They just trapped out of it a couple times, and then their zone offense. We actually never played zone. We tried to go a little zone, and they threw a lob and dunked on us right away. So we played one possession of it, but yeah, it was because Chaz Thomas, their point guard, ended up playing with our point guard in college, and they would get on each other a little bit. So it was kind of funny.
Wow. Uh, we were talking about the family. Talk about coaching with your dad. He's been on your bench for every single game throughout your entire career. What a beautiful thing that is. What a blessing it is. Tell me about that experience.
Well, first, it's great. The summer's even better because you play tournaments, but it's just me and him, like driving in the car, a couple players, but then awesome. And then to have a 30 years span where that guy's your best friend growing up, and then now you get to experience something that really means a lot to both of you. So that networking is just awesome, and I think that well worth it at all times. So it's kind of cool. He just brings a calm, and kids tend to go to him for things, and it's weird because he's the one telling me that dude's lazy, whatever, but they always come to him and he makes them feel better, and he'll tape them even though we have a trainer. He just does all these things that people don't expect, set up the clock. And so when you're a selfless person that's coached forever and care about kids, I mean, what a great model, right? And he doesn't need to take any of the credit. It's just like pretty cool. Because early when you first coach, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of moving forward, but like sometimes people are always like looking for you to fail. I know he doesn't want me to fail, you know what I mean? And then sometimes maybe your JV or freshman coach wants your job, and I'm like, you don't want my job either. So I mean, we've been there long enough now where that's not the case, but I've seen every league team I'll go in and I watch all three of our games. So if we're playing Kennedy, I'll get there for the freshman game. I'll watch all three. I want to watch our coaches and our kids. So I'll get there, and then the varsity coach will talk to me, or a JV guy, but they'll they'll tell me all these things, and I'm like, you're coaching there. I don't want to hear any negative about leave. Don't coach under that guy if you're gonna badmouth it. Like I think that makes you look bad. I don't like that loyalty thing.
It's always easier when you don't have to make the final decision.
Yeah, for
All,
sure.
all the things in your head are always right because you just don't know. And then once figure it out, it's really difficult. Like it's hard to win. It's hard. It's really difficult. I would like people to create a different standard for coaches because and I look up this stuff, more recently because I've been doing this podcast, but some of the best coaches don't win 80% of their games. I think, Mark Few is one of the only ones that has won 80% of his games right now that's an active head coach. Coach K and Beeline and all these guys are close. They're in the high 70s.
Okay.
But that means if you won 75% of your games, there's 25% of agony, as a coach. Like it's brutal. And those are the elite coaches. If you win 70% of your games and up, you are elite. You've had a really great run. If you're in the 60s, you're very, very good. Even if you win half of your games, it's really difficult. So I think people should have, like, if we had a 70% winning percentage in our math class, well, we're going to get a C. but I think people need to look at, coaches in particular in a lot different way because it's just really hard to win.
Well, and then you alluded to it too. You create your own monster, like what you're creating now. so so when you do win 70%, when you go 17 and 8, you had a lousy year, you know? I mean, we do a shootout with Jerry Freitas, and I think one year we were like 13 and 12, and it was the first time we hadn't won 20 games in like a long time. And he was like, "Oh man, are you hating it?" And it was like the funnest time I had coaching. These kids are just busting their tail, and they're getting judged at a different level. And I'm putting them in that spot. They're playing people they shouldn't play, but they're competing and they're getting way better. And they, at the end of the year, they got it done and they made it to the section finals. And wow, they weren't good though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that to me is like huge. And I think, like you said, coaches have to look, because we've had a lot of times where we won and we just hate who we are, and we lost. We didn't love losing, but we loved who we're about, how we coached, how we played. And that's a stepping stone to some other successes. But that scoreboard the competitive thing kills you. But there's a lot of nights where you're like, man, we're all right. We just got to do these things. And it's not a black and white. And I think people want to judge it that way, right? I'm a
Right.
Green Bay Packer guy. I don't go for it on fourth. They kick that field goal, they get a stop and they win the game, then he's a great coach. But he didn't go for it on fourth, and he doesn't know what he's doing, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And like the last 2 years, we finished 500 in league, and we got second place.
Mhm.
And that's how difficult it's been. And then when we go into
Yes.
playoffs, they'll see a record of 15-9 or 16-8 or sometimes 18-10, whatever the case may be. And they might give us a lower seed, and then we'll go and beat somebody that we're like, oh, what? Well, we play harder schedules all the time, and
Yeah.
that's one thing that people don't really understand. Your league, the WCL on both sides, top to bottom, is just ridiculous. It's unbelievable how good the teams are, and you have to change your thinking on what is actually a successful season, because most teams, if they go 500 in league, like we'll play a team in NorCal and they went 12-0 in their terrible league, and then they'll be in a real tough matchup with us just because we've been structured in a different way to play high level opponents all the time.
Well, I felt that in high school. I think in the 2 years we lost one league game, my junior and senior year, in to Oak Grove or whatever. But we had like this win streak, but we lost to St. Ignatius, and we lost to, I think, Bellarmine or whatever. But we weren't ready. They both had like 7, 8 losses,
Mm,
but they were in a grind, and
yeah.
we just weren't ready. Everything was easy. Shots, one bad shot didn't mean nothing. Where two bad shots might be your game, and from the wrong guy. And I saw that and I understood that for us, because when I came to this school, the year I took over, I think they were 1-13. So everyone was like a big game for them. But I also realized that if we didn't play tougher teams outside of league, when we got to league, our kids would look at Logan and Moreau and some of them and be like, we got to play perfect. You should feel like if you just do your job, you could beat them, and yeah, they're at the top of the mountain, but you better feel like you could win. And I don't think a lot of kids go in with that, the work ethic and the ability to beat those top teams. They think you're gonna luck in to win. You don't luck in and beat Midi. You're not gonna roll out. You could play great and still lose.
Right.
So you have to knock that off. You got to go in there and take things.
Yeah.
And your mentality of your girls is starting to, it's like a stepping stone. They keep going and going. And then of course your expectation, it wouldn't have started without you having that vision of, we're going to do it, we're going to do
Right.
it. And they know, they can just feel that. It's like in huge games, I can look at some kids and I know they're ready to go, they're just ready. And then some guys work really hard, and all of a sudden their vision's down. They don't want the ball, they don't want I mean, they don't want it.
Yeah.
They said all these things, but they really don't want it.
Yeah. And you said it on our pre-call, but like I think it was around the early 2000s or late late 90s when you really started to really get it firing on all cylinders. And I think, that's a similar place to be, but I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah, but speaking.
Because here's your bar, but then all of a sudden they're matching you, and then some of your kids, man, I feel like, in 30 years you can never pick out one guy. We've had, I'm looking down, like 16 Division I players, and they're all like great kids and good. But one kid, it took him a JC, a transfer, go there, and he's still playing overseas. And he was an all league guy, but he wasn't good. Like, you looked at him and he just wasn't good. But the dude was the best competitor, best teammate, and everything. And he just made those teams like he could play anywhere. I watched him guard Kyrie Irving in that game, and Kyrie can't go by him. Kyrie ends up stealing it from other guys and stuff, but he's guarding a lottery pick like it's a guy down at, Camden Community Center.
Yeah, I remember at Camden Community Center Friday nights. But you talked about Kyrie Irving. He played against Tyson Chandler in a state championship game. Tell me about some of the memorable moments that you've had with coaching in some of these awesome games, because there's no, if you've never coached before, you don't really understand the feeling of a huge game, and the preparation that all went into it, the anxiety, the not sleeping the night before, and then you get into this moment, and then you were there, and it feels like it just goes by so fast. But the game could last 2 hours, and it just feels like a snap. But I really enjoyed our pre-call telling me about some of these moments.
Yeah, I mean, we got lucky enough in Torrey Pines to play some national level teams, and even watching those, tapes in retrospect, it brings the greatest out of your kids, and the environment's good. And one of the things about those games is, like, unlike traditionally, you play those games and your season's over. You're looking at the state game. You don't get a second go around at Dominguez and Compton and Westchester. But when you're playing St. Pat's and the number one in the country, there's going to be a tomorrow, no matter what. And it's just kind of fun to see that guy, the DeRozans, Kyrie Irving, Kid Gilchrist, Marquise Chris, all these NBA guys, when you get to play against them, it's kind of nice for your kids to battle too. And they know, kids know how good these guys, they're hyped, and all the other, I mean, the teams are big time. So it was nice to national level teams at Torrey Pines to play, and then to be good enough to be in the finals. I think every year we were at least 500 in that tournament in the national division, which they have multiple divisions. So it was kind of cool. I mean, at the time, the Bay Area teams, Bellarmine would go, we would go, O'Dowd, and it's a struggle. I mean, Jesuit or Carmichael won it one year, and they were amazing. It was like fun to watch. The North didn't go there. You're not going down there. It's either a out of state team or a LA team really kind of dominating that one.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Those high level moments with big time players is no better feeling than that. What type of coaching hacks do you have to live, the life that you live? You work out a lot. I know you're in shape and things like that. So what has been paramount to you having this longevity as a coach?
I just feel like a great passion. I think the kids give us so much back, but part of that is just my job is, being a PE guy and the basketball coach. Your schedule's great, and it's a way to connect and make your job fun. I feel like I'm getting paid to do something that I really love, and it's nice. And then there was some opportunities where I could have went a different area, but in doing so, maybe that wouldn't have been best for my family to move around. My buddy in the NBA, he's on his third team, three colleges, and then he was out of work for 2 years. He was getting paid, but you're living, and he has little kids. His son's 5 and 2, and I mean, now, okay, I'm going to get a job in LA. They start not liking to move around so much.
Yeah.
So at the time when maybe I could have done some of those things, it was great to just shoot. I pick my daughter up from school every day. My granddaughter now, I'll drive. She goes to preschool, and I'll drive and see her. You know what I mean? And my daughter was a lot of times daycare by one of my stat girls or whatever in our practices all the time, you know.
Yeah.
My son was smart enough to go home, and he probably felt I was going to make him work, but my daughter wanted to be there all the time. And they went to our school, which when you're trying to sell your product, what better than my kids went here? My son played for me, you know?
Wow. Yeah. Um, as we kind of wrap it up, where can everybody follow you if they want to get some more information? We didn't talk much X's and O's, and maybe, well, I definitely want to actually have you back on so we could talk about how hard you get your kids to play, the X's and O's of the game, things like that. I know we talked about shooting 1-2 versus the hop, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. Because I'd really like to dive into some of the skill development as well as the team development piece that you've been so good at. But if anybody wants information on reaching out to you, where should they do that?
Well, the best probably email. We do have a Twitter, a little Facebook for our athletic program, and they have it on there. I'm not on there. So email me up at cashmore@newarkunified.org. I'll get right back to you. I mean, it was kind of neat because the community of coaches through coaching against them is awesome. I never coached against Coach Seamus, but he's come up here 2 or 3 times, and we've spent a couple hours just walking through the court and talking basketball. And it's just, I love it. You know what I mean? It's good. That's why I kind of reached out to you. I mean, I definitely didn't need to be on this stuff here, but I'd love to just talk to you. And then now I reached out to Lavelle, and he's, oh yeah, that coach is awesome. Yeah, good. The community of people that really do it the right way and care is nice. And then when you have longevity in doing it, you're going to do it and you're going to find your landscape. Seamus maybe didn't balance those things, and then his longevity was cut short. It wasn't because of success, because he was rolling.
He was on top, yeah.
So, I hope, I don't know, this COVID stuff is way different for me, and right now it's hard, really hard, and just looking at what are we going to do and all. But I wanted to try to get 35 years just at one high school, and we're going on our 31. So to try to do that, but that would put me at 60. So I don't know. I mean, I feel young, work out hour and a half every day. I'll run with our kids. I'll lift weights with them. And I always tease them that I'll lift more than them. And I definitely I can't shoot it's crazy. Used to be able to play, used to be able to shoot, then used to be able to make free throws. I can't do it. I'm terrible now. It's like I'll demonstrate. I'm like, here, this is how you shoot, and I'm clanking it off the backboard and everything. It's funny, but yeah. I mean, the kids know your competitiveness. They know they're gonna play hard for you, because you're gonna demand it. You're gonna be. I'm not always gonna be polite about it. That's the one thing that's a non-negotiable.
Right.
You're gonna hear that. Your effort's gonna be at a high level, and you're gonna be about us.
And that's what I admire most about you. So I really appreciate you joining the show. I know that this is going to be a fantastic episode for people to get some information from, and just the mentality that it really takes to have a high level program like yourself. But yeah, I really appreciate the time. I'm so glad we got to meet. I know that we will stay connected. And I'm so glad you reached out, because that's what it's really all about. And, helping other people, other coaches. I'm just blessed and honored to have you on.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. And I am going to do this, though. I'm going to watch your practice, and I'm going to go to your workouts or whatever you have. I know you have some businesses on the side or whatever that you do. And I love watching. That's like the greatest thing for me to see kids getting better through coaching, and kids getting better in the game from the mind on. So I'm going to be selfish enough to make sure that I go in those things and really get from you some great stuff.
You got the open invitation, Coach. Appreciate you.
And I'm going to use it. So
you better.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Buckets podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and share the show with your friends. And until next time, take care.